Hey guys, it's your bros here from Gold Dang Bros Gaming. We're rocking out for our After Atlanta episode. This is episode number 10, people. Super excited. We've been doing this consistently, bringing you content every week, especially after big events. They're my favorite episodes because we always have so much to talk about. So, starting with that, we had some really big finishes for our West Virginia group. Luke Giffen, from a junior from Williamstown, brought home the crown with Dragapult. Regional champion. He's a regular in our league, plays in several leagues. He's a very great player. We actually were home to his very first cup when he first started. And now here we are, with him as regional champion. Um, Also had Tiger right here. Finished 149th. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, about his run with the Zard that he was playing and we were testing, and it was great. And like I said, I'll give him the floor to talk about that. And also a big shout out to Nathaniel Edelman from Team Ball Guy, 167th day two. I'm not sure what he was playing. Tiger, you want to fix that one for me?
Yeah, he was playing the Tank Terapagos deck.
Cool. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to screw it up. So other than that, I had fun in ATL. Tiger, how about your best experience there in ATL?
Um, Other than playing, best experience there was weather and food. Gotta
Food.
love the weather there. Other than the rain, once we got past the rain, the it was a nice weather.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely
think,
a little rainier.
yep. So for me, definitely food. Obviously, I'm from the South. I love going down there. That's hometown for us. Really enjoyed seeing that. I would have liked about 3 or 4 more days in Atlanta to really get out and, kind of visit our old haunts from when we lived there. But, loved getting in there and seeing everything again.
Yeah, I luckily all I ate in Atlanta was wings. I got word that all the wings were good, so everywhere I went, it was very simple for me to figure out the menu because I didn't even look. I just say,
So
hey,
where'd you get wings from?
oh, so the I got wings from everywhere. I'm not gonna lie, but the best place that I got wings from was called J.R. Crickets. It was a small little stop, little small dine-in area. It's definitely more pick up and go, but I got a recommendation to get lemon hot pepper wet, being that they were soaking in the sauce. They called them swimming, is what they called them. It was kind of funny. But I got that with fries and shrimp, and I was dipping the fries and dipping the shrimp and eating the wings. Hands down, best wings I've ever had. Um, Flavorful. I couldn't even finish them all, but it was so good. Yeah, I got to enjoy it with one of my friends, so that was another cool time to walk around the city. But yeah, that was my favorite experience in ATL as far as food comes.
So I know, Sean, you like to walk around cities, just
Mhm.
being traveling with you a little bit. What was your experience with walking around Atlanta? Would you suggest it, not suggest it?
So yeah, that was one thing we talked about with the professor group there at the end of the weekend. We set up something, but nobody walked alone type deal because it can be that serious downtown in Atlanta. I mean, I was fine. I did always have somebody with me except for the one night, but I stayed in. I got in pretty early. I wasn't out gallivanting too late. But for anybody that does travel, definitely have a plan of attack if you're out by yourself. Better to have a buddy if you can. Like I was saying, so at the end of our little professor party at the bar we went to, we made sure that everybody had a buddy. If you weren't getting an Uber back, we were walking. It was only half a mile, but we were leaving at around midnight, so we wanted to make sure everybody had a buddy. Nobody left alone. That's something I bring back from military days. So we made sure that happened. That's what I would say for anybody else that's traveling anywhere, to be honest, but especially in Atlanta. So
I ended up going to a place called Hop Dottie's Burger Bar. I will 100% say, with all of my years cooking, my culinary experience, my degree, my everything, um, best Wagyu burger I've ever had. They had a spicy garlic aioli that went with it. They specifically said you are not allowed to order this well done. Um, it came out delicious. I would put that on best burger I've ever had,
nice.
hands down, 10 out of 10. Hop Dottie Burger Bar. It's an Atlanta group only. I looked up. I was like, do they have places other spots? I mean, there's some in Texas, but if you go back to an Atlanta regional, I would look this place up.
All right.
Alcoholic milkshakes for the adults that are going there,
Yeah, of course.
and good burgers and gourmet fries. I'm talking they had flavored sweet potato fries and sauced up regular fries, so you could mix and match, get your little boozy shakes and a good burger.
Nice.
That's awesome. We stayed a little further north. We were about 25 minutes away from the venue, so we were up in like the Dunwoody, Chamblee area, and we went to a restaurant called North Italia. So we had some family come down and visit. Samantha's aunt and uncle came down and visited with the kids and spent some time with them. And North Italia was really good. Just kind of Italian bar food, but very nice, very good, and some really flavorful bruschetta. I remember.
Okay. Nice. So, other than that, the only other takeaway I think we all gathered from Atlanta, and this should probably go well for anybody who travels yet again. Call this Sean's traveling advice. I guess I'll have to figure out my segment, right? Know where to park. So, first day we went down, we kind of didn't really do our due diligence on research and parking. Ended up paying a lot more for parking. Tiger and Carly decided to Uber in each day, which didn't seem like a bad idea. But then they found a cheaper parking spot they could have prepaid for. I know a lot of other people were in the same boat. So definitely make sure you know where to park whenever you're traveling to a regional, Atlanta specifically. So,
Yeah, and kind of tagging in on that, when we came in Friday, and this is the hard part with Atlanta. Atlanta's a bunch of not one-way streets, just streets that are hard to get turned around in. So, we missed the first parking area, ended up having to go down about a mile before we could really get turned around somewhere. And I swear it felt like it cost us 30, 40 minutes just to get turned around and get back to the parking lot. So yeah, definitely. I usually do a really good job of researching that stuff ahead of time so I know what's up, and I did not that time. Probably, hometown regional and all, but it definitely cost us a good bit of time.
nice. So, other than that, we'll go ahead and get to the day. So, Zard came through. Tiger, you want to go ahead and let them know how the Terrazard monster you built worked out for you in day one?
Yeah, I told you guys that I was gonna play Zard. I stood on business, whether it gave me a good or bad run. Um, Day one, I went 7-1-1 with it. I lost to an Archaludon. They got two donks on me. I can't really fix that much. They went first one round, went poison KO. I went cool. Um, the game two, I got to go first. I got Mander and Fan Rotom. It wasn't an effective donk, but like I didn't get to play the game because I had Mander and a Fan Rotom. Fan Rotom did his fan call thing, but then he got instant donk on the Charmander, and I was not able to reestablish because he had momentum at that point. So it wasn't worth the stress. It was the first loss. I just took it and moved on. I had a tie against Goldango. I went 301 day one against it, all thanks to that Volcanion. Got him his Limitless page. Um, then day two, I hit Dre from TSS. Shout out Dre, great guy. He messaged me and said, "I guarantee we've got this." Because we both went in 7-on-1. First round, we hit each other. We just kind of laughed the whole time while everybody's being serious because it was an unfavorable matchup. He had Badoo locked Dragapult, and I'm just sitting there laughing because there's nothing I can do. I can't beat Dragapult with Charizard. It's like a 70-30 if both players are playing completely optimally. And so he got the game. We just enjoyed our time, BS as a couple of buddies would playing sitting at a kitchen table. Um, Game two, I hit Hunter Smith. He ended up taking top 16. I think he got 13th place. He good player, very energetic, talkative dude. Um, he squeaked out the win with the I had the game running for game three. I was ready to go, but he got a perfect timed Iono Prime Catcher with no two prizers on the board. Chased down my only hoot with a fan rotom from the Iono Prime catcher, and that left me with 2 cards, no search ability, because I didn't want to have any other 2 prizers on the board for him to be able to power up a Terapagos and chase it down, because that's kind of what Zard does. I get big and you can't KO me. And then I KO'd him. He got a Fez down. Fez found him boss plus energy, and he got my other single prizer on the board. So he snagged the win there on me with Terapagos, which is a very favorable matchup. Round 3, I hit an Archaludon that I just set up perfect both games. If you survive the turn 1 donk, you should kind of just beat Archaludon because they can't really do anything to you. He got all the way down to 1 prize, and I went unfair Charizard 3 times, and he just couldn't come back from that. And then round 4, I wanted to ID with my opponent just to get a top 128. But he knew I was playing Charizard and he was playing Dragapult. He just didn't want anything to do with that. He knew he had a good chance of winning. And he ended up getting top 64 because of it. So good on him. He knew what I was playing because he watched his social media. But I can't complain. I played on hard mode for that event. Dragapult was the most played deck, and I still came out, I would say, on top, highest placed Terapagos Charizard of the event. There was a Pidgeot Charizard player who placed higher than me. So Zard did show up a little bit, not as much as it should have. Most people are not Zard believers, and who knows? Now the Gardevoir's popping up, we might see more Zards.
So Tiger, would you say that your call for Dragapult was a little bit off on it not being real?
Yeah, I just had to tell that to myself so that way I would be fine playing Charizard. We all knew Dragapult was actually a good deck, and if you go back a couple episodes, you'll listen to me say I know Dragapult's a real deck, but
Okay. Here's my point though. So this is the point to bring it up. So Tiger, if many of you haven't watched in the past, a lot of his day 2s have been from fighting from the bottom. But both Puerto Rico and Atlanta, we both made meta calls that we weren't going to see one of the most played or supposedly most played decks. And you did accomplish that feat still in Atlanta, correct? And actually, as a judge, I wasn't really able to see him play because I was off in sides working on my other things there. But you went 3-1-1, 4-1-1, 5-1-1 straight on, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't see any pulls, your guess was correct there, and you were solid with your list choice. That's what I'm getting at. That's the one thing I want players to take away from this, is that we were still solid in the list choice. You were right in what you said. You weren't going to see every Polt in the room, even if you did. Now, day 2 came around, different story. Live and you learn.
Exactly.
And I remember, Tiger, it was kind of the same thing for you with Puerto Rico. It was, hey, yeah, Lugia, you're going to lose 9 times out of 10 to that Miraidon matchup, but you went day 1 and didn't see a Miraidon. And yet again, day 2 was a little different story for you there. But making those good choices and, yeah, getting a little bit of help with the matchups, but choosing a deck that's going to hit in well into most things as opposed to just fearing that one matchup.
If anybody goes and looks at my specific Limitless page, every deck that I had, I chose to play effectively hard mode. For that event, the deck that I picked beats everything but the number 1 deck for the format. So I have a habit of choosing what's going to be 80% of the meta versus what's going to be 15 to 20%. Because statistically, yes, you can see 9 of those in one day. But in general, if 85% is everything else and you're okay seeing 85% of it, that's what I'm going to choose to play. Oh, Charizard has a really bad Dragapult matchup. It was 16%. That falls in that around that 85% number I was talking about. I saw everything else in day 1. Baltimore, I played Mochizard, and what was it? Regidrago was the number 1 played deck. I think it was 18%. I didn't see a Regidrago in day 1 or day 2. So it can happen. Variants can go in your way. What is it? My very first day 2, I played Goldango. I saw 6 Charizards. And Charizard and Giratina were the two most played decks. That one I went in saying, "Hey, I'm going to see nothing but Charizards, and I'm going to hit really hard and draw cards." So sometimes you just got to say, "I'm going to stand on business. This is why I'm playing my deck," and manifest that it's going to happen.
Bingo. And that's the main point I wanted to get out of that. I didn't want to hit so much on Dragapult not being real, but for all the players out there, understand it's not always just one deck. BDIF is not always the choice. Sometimes you got to pick what you choose, given the meta. And again, us as a team did all that in Puerto Rico. I mean, we talked about that all leading up to Atlanta, and that all helped you make that decision to rock with that. So Troy, how about the girls? How did they do in Charlotte? How did Charlotte and Ella do in Atlanta? And what do we got from the Golden Gals growing up there in training?
So we needed a big Atlanta. Unfortunately, it it went a little tough for us. Ella played kind of 500 balls. She got behind. She was one where she was her first big tournament on. She was on Poison Arch, and all three of her first three losses, she started 1-3. All three losses, she went to game three, but she just couldn't close out game three. So we talked a little bit about through lunch. She converted, got back to 3-3, was playing well, and I forget what it was, but she hit an unfavorable matchup in the final. I think it was I forget what it was, and hit an unfavorable matchup, ended up 3-4. 4-3 would have put her at about 75th out of the 230, which is very reasonable. You're close to points there. So she did very well. Had a good rebound. It's easy to get down to yourself sitting at 1-3. So I'm very proud of her for doing that. Charlotte had kind of a weird one where Charlotte has always played traditionally very fast. Like she doesn't tie matches. And there's been times where I'm like, girl, you got to tie a match here and there, but she ultimately doesn't usually tie matches. And with the slowdown in meta that we've seen since rotation, I don't think, even though we talked about it, I don't think she really truly understood what that slowdown in the meta was going to mean, and she ended up going into the final was 3-1-2. She hit the gamut of big players, like 4 out of her first 5 players, I think, were Worlds players from 2024, and she didn't lose to a single one of them. So she won or tied against all 4 of them. So very proud of her for that. Goes into the final matchup. Tried to get a gentleman's agreement based on board state. Um, Player didn't want to do that, which again, it's his right to choose not to do that. But unfortunately, it went to a tie. Neither player at that point was able to move on and go to day two. So had they done a gentleman's agreement, one of them would have moved to day two instead of the tie, and nobody does. So she was a little heartbroken, tears shed. But ultimately, looking back on it, look at the matchups she played. She played a lot of Raging Bolts, and she was on Poison Arch, and she did well. And she hit into a lot of stuff that's tough players, tough matchups, and she did really, really well. So very proud of her for that. But it's always hard to not get the points and not get the finishes you deserve. Had she won that final match, she would have gone into day two, I think, in 30th position and sitting there. Potentially, you win your 2 matches, you're fighting there for a top 8 potentially. So, you know, it hurts a little bit, but very proud of both of the girls and how they did.
Yeah, I mean, new format woes. I believe most players are feeling it. Charlotte's one of those ones that was playing Lugia every single event, and there's definitely a lot that can be said about playing the same deck and getting used to playing it and adjusting it as new cards come out. But now she didn't have a choice. So rocking the Poison Arches, at least we can talk about those things. I know we also had a situation that we talked about outside of here that she could have done to help with that one situation with that one player. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Um, yeah, I mean, ultimately, what it really comes down to, um, are you talking about with Ella?
Yeah, well, it was
Okay.
no,
Oh,
it was
yeah,
one
yeah,
of the
yeah. Sorry,
girls,
sorry,
but
sorry.
I know
Yep.
it had something to do with play, so I figured that was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
one
So,
one thing we could talk
yep.
about.
So ultimately, and again, I'll shoot for no matter who it is, whether you're an adult, a master, or a
Hmm.
senior, whatever it is. We had a bit of a bullying incident in one of our rounds with my younger daughter, where had a opponent who was saying some stuff that was just a little meaner than what I teach my children to be. And without going too deep into
Hmm.
it, ultimately it really upset her. She went to game 3 with it and she was upset. And she said to me that she knows that that cost because she was getting frustrated. And, again, that was probably the intent by the player was to frustrate her
Hmm.
and, goad her into a loss. But ultimately, as you hit those things, if you've got a player that, no matter who you are, again, if whatever area you're in, if you've got another player who's making you uncomfortable, it's your responsibility to call a judge and let the judge handle that. Because ultimately, she ended up, losing the round and was hurt not only because she lost the round, but also because the player was saying some things that were mean to her. So now that player goes into the next round and can potentially do the same thing to the next player. So what we talked about, and again, talking with Shawn and talking with some of our other judge friends, because I tried not to make split, reactions. Of course, we didn't know about any of this till after the round was over. But talking through, self advocation and advocating for yourself as you go through, not just for your own sake, but for the sake of the next kid. Who's the next kid? Can you protect that next kid from getting bullied in that round to where they don't have to deal with that? And sure, you still had to, but maybe you can keep that next kid from having to.
Yeah, so I know it was kind of thrown on the spot, Troy. That was kind of my plan. I didn't even think about it till we started talking, but before we moved on from the girls playing, I kind of wanted to cover that. And again, Troy was perfect, spot on with that. The biggest thing here is if there is an intimidation, bully type factor, even if it's something as simple as what was going on here without going in the details, call a judge, let them get into it. And then the main thing is don't be so over emotional with your explanation that you can't compose yourself to explain what's happening. In a lot of times with the kids, sometimes once one kid can be strong, a firm, explain what's happening in a calm and constructive manner, and the other kid was doing it to rile the kid up in the first place, because that's what ultimately ended up happening in this matchup, that's usually what's going to happen right there during the investigation on the floor. And that will then give the judge enough to make an accurate decision on what's going on there. And even not, like Troy said, the idea here is to advocate for yourself, if not, so that it doesn't continue to happen, because that's not what we want for the game. So if there's any judge point I have for the day, that's if you're in doubt, call a judge. It takes 2 seconds to ask a question. If there's anything that you are ever worried about, that's what we are there for. That's what we do, day in, day out, month in, month out, I should say. Some of these judges I know literally have leagues they go to 3, 4 times a week, and then also travel with the circuit. So really, that's my main point there. I just wanted to make sure that got out there to know to call the judge.
Player safety, just making sure you feel comfortable is a super important part of being at these events. Like everybody there wants you to feel safe and enjoy your time playing Pokemon.
Hmm.
So if it's calling a judge, doing whatever you have to do, make sure that you feel okay.
Hmm. But other than that, I think the regional is really great. We're on sides. We ran uh, a challenge, which was pretty great. It did go a little bit behind, I'm not gonna lie, but they gave us a super long walk from the hive to where the event was running, so that's part of the hurdles. But we rocked and rolled. I had a solid team. We got through a lot of problems there, some table number issues and stuff like that. Just stuff that the hive, it happens. If anybody here watching is a one of my professor friends, or anybody here runs the league on their own, Tom does Tom things, and things happen. We rocked and rolled it though, and I want to applaud them for getting right to it. We ran everything and kept the player enjoyment on a very high level. That's what I try to do at every single event that we go to. Other than that, I mean, there was definitely a lot to see at the tournaments. They have been. They had nine some vendors. I know Tiger came away with his new Zard plushie for day two and up there, so he's got a new one added to the back of the collection. Other than
Yeah.
that, what'd you guys enjoy about the side stuff on? I know Tiger, you pretty much day two'd and then slept. But Troy,
Yeah,
what
I
about
didn't
you?
have much time to do any side events.
What
No,
about
we
you?
we hit up some Friday sides. We ideally I would love to hang around on Sunday, but with us not playing, us having an 11-hour drive back, we kind of ripped. But Friday, we actually rushed down as much as we could because my girls love playing in the sisterhood events. So we had a time frame, and we're driving, and the girls are talking about being hungry and they're ready for lunch. And I was like, "Look, girls, we have time to either sit down and eat lunch, or get to the sisterhood event. We can't do both those things." And they're like, "No, let's just snack and get some snacks and make sure we get to that event." But they always love playing them. The opponents, everybody's having fun. The opponents are always just super happy and just having a blast out there. And you're definitely going to see some janky decks in the Sisterhood event. So you see some weird stuff with people just having fun. But props to any of the opponents that played my girls out there, and it was just looked like it was a lot of fun for them.
Awesome. I'm glad that they enjoy that event. That's something that's been a staple at tournaments. So if there's any female players out there, female identifying players that want to play in an event for just them, they're definitely look up the sisterhood events. They usually have one each day. We got Milwaukee coming up in 2 weeks, so there'll be another one there.
Yeah. Speaking of the sisterhood event, my girlfriend, this was her first regional. She played Lily's Mons and Ogre Pawns in the main event. But in the sisterhood event and in the extra Sunday side events, we are working on a fun little Alakazam Walls deck, and she is loving it. Sitting behind Mimikyus and Cornerstones and just poking for a little bit of damage. Um, we talked about this earlier in an episode as well about how the interaction of Clefairy and Alakazam can actually let Alakazam hit for weakness from the bench, and she did it a couple times. They didn't realize what happened. They pushed up a Raging Bolt and she punched it for 240 because of the weakness affected that was given to the Alakazam, and they were like, okay, cool. And
Mm-hmm.
she's just been enjoying this Zatu Alakazam wonky wall deck.
Well, yeah, we gonna see it debut in Milwaukee, huh?
Yeah, she plans on playing it to the main event in Milwaukee. So any of you Dragon enjoyers, be ready to
Beware.
beware of the Alakazam.
Dragons beware. So speaking of that, that leads me into my next topic, which I have right here, is Milwaukee. We're getting into this spot where it's gonna be two regionals this month. I know me, I got possibly, fingers crossed, still don't know necessarily about Milwaukee. Three events this month, including PAX for me, PAX East in Boston. So it'll be Milwaukee, Boston, 1 week off, and then Portland. So looking into Milwaukee, Tiger, what's the front line play for Milwaukee?
I have no idea. Um,
I
Everything's
figured
been
that was
shaken up.
that was a trick question. That was totally a
Um,
trick question.
Personal thoughts at this moment. I'm testing the Smellephant, aka Copper uh, and Gouging Fire poison package.
Okay.
Um, I the only thing I can say is if you do not have a good Badoo matchup, don't play your deck. You have to be able to either Badoo back or deal with Badoos with heavy supporter decks. Um, that's why also a deck that just prefers to go first will give you a little bit of an advantage going into this event. Terapagos is okay. It has a weird Guardy matchup, but it's an okay Dragapult matchup. But you might be able to just steamroll and overpower Guardy because of how fast you are. Um, the poison package decks, uh, just win before they're allowed to Badoo you.
There you
That's
go.
just that
Simple.
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 And then, like I said, the Copper deck. This thing kind of popped up a few weeks ago. People were were making fun of it, calling it a meme and whatnot. The Copper Quad Monkey Dory. Copper has uh, the ability that it just reduces damage by 30 when it takes it. So effectively, it's a 330 HP stage one. It swings for 260 for two metals and a colorless, but it has to put 30 onto all the bench Pokemon. Effectively, Monkey Dory likes the number 30. So if you have a Monkey Dory has 30 damage on it, you can move it back with a Dark Energy, play some E switches. Now you're chaining Monkey Dories and ramping up damage. After a couple 2 Monkey Dories plus a 260, you hit 320. That's kind of like the magic number right now. Other than like Charizard and Mamoswine, but we won't go to Mamoswine right now.
We can save that for another
That
video.
gives you a lot of playroom to hit good numbers and a lot of sustainability by healing off the extra pieces. Um, as long as you get past turn 2 from personal testing, it dominates Dragapult and Gardevoir. If you can get past the Badoo on turn 2, because you do play a lot of supporters, um, Gardevoir doesn't hit hard enough consistently because it can't chain the Drifloon charms quick enough, and Dragapult just doesn't do anything against 3 to 4 Monkey Dories. It physically just can't beat that because you only take 170 damage from the attack because it only hits for 200, and then it spreads 6. So like they're just not doing anything. If you get like I said, Copper actually might be a little bit of a contender if you want to go into this event saying I'm not hitting Sterile Edge, um, Goldango, or Raging Bolt.
Yeah, I'd
And
say.
even Goldango might not be that bad because you just hit for a flat 260.
I was gonna say, it seems like before we get to the Goldango aspect, the Camparaja you're talking about is kind of classic to most metal decks, where it's effective DR if you can set the field up with the Monkey Dories, and you're
Mm-hmm.
getting the resistance to the Psychic. You're almost daring the Dragapult to spread the damage. Go ahead, because they're gonna use it right back.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that, Troy? You got any words on the Smelliphant?
I mean, definitely the Smelliphant is interesting. It's definitely going to be very matchup related. You hit the good stuff, you're going to be really good. So I'm not on the Smelliphant train.
I haven't tried it yet. I just
Uh,
thought it was
yeah.
funny.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not on the Smelliphant train, but I'll let you boys do that. But looking at, I mean, obviously, I don't expect any major shakeups from Atlanta to Milwaukee. There's nothing, drastic that happened. Looking at juniors meta, there was, it was kind of a microcosm of exactly what you saw in Masters. You've got some Dragapults, you got some Turtle Tanks, you got some Marchalodons, some Goldengos. It really kind of was very similar to Masters, and you do usually see some variation from juniors to Masters. So, it's interesting watching that, as well as, of course, Dragapult took down juniors as well, but it was
Hmm.
the non-Dusknor Dragapult, which was
Yeah, that's
interesting.
the
So
one
you got
thing that
slow.
Luke does play the non-Dustnor build, so
Yep,
that's
exactly.
usually
So
the one that was excelling. Being able to pull out 4 prize, 2 prize turns, even sometimes 6 prize turns, if done right.
yeah, and he's got, of course, it looked like he did a little bit of counter with expecting that he was going to hit some other Dragapult, so he had some Clefairy in there just to help. A little bit of work there, but you know, I don't expect anything major there. However, again, like we've talked about in the past, play what you want. If you want to go
Yep,
in there, play the Smelliphant, daggum, go in there and play the
play
Smelliphant,
Smelliphant.
have fun. As long as it's a choice that's makes sense into the meta, play it.
Yeah. So like something like the
Mm-hmm.
Smelliphant, and then maybe the Alakazam Walls. That's something that we've been talking about, getting some deck list videos out about, playing in some tournaments with. So maybe we'll gather some more data and put some of that stuff out this week coming up. Maybe help, if not influence you guys for Atlanta, give you something to play around and test. Because that's kind of what we do, just play around with stuff, test it out. You never know what you're going to see, so the more that you see, the more you allow yourself to see, the better off you'll be.
So yeah, let us know, guys, if you want the Copperaja Smelliphant deck list that I took the original list that somebody posted and kind of tweaked it a little bit, modified it to make it more of a BO3, not a BO1. This is all I can do deck. If you want to see the Gouging Fire Poison Package deck, let us know. If there's anything that we have talked about, let us
Let us
know, and
know.
we can get you deck lists.
Right
You are more than
below.
welcome. Yep.
Comment below. Let us know. That's how we can do it. We can put whatever. I will be a tester. I'll test whatever deck. Other than that, I'm just going to play Goldango, which I'm still rocking mine. We're going to rock it in a tournament this weekend, and we'll see how strong it still is. I have plans against
Also,
Bolt. So,
Sean can be getting some Discord links put up or ways to get a hold of us, to get Discord links, to get into the Gold Dang Bros Discord. So that way you can just see and ask for deck lists, ask for video ideas, ask for any of that directly to us.
Yeah, so my plan there, and you guys can hold me to it by me saying right here, it'll make me want to do it. In the bottom of this video, I'm going to actually have a much better description where I'm going to get all the links for everybody's socials here, for Tiger's socials and ats, for Troy's socials and ats, for mine, JR Studios, my other freelance graphic design stuff, Tiger's coaching, that sort of stuff. So anything and everything you need to find out about Gold Dang Bros, you'll be able to find it. If not, you'll be able to get in contact with us. And we hope to hear from you, and that will influence the content. So let us know what you want to hear. Other than that, guys, you got anything else cracking?
I was just going to say, keep your fingers crossed, guys. We're trying to get the girls into Milwaukee.
Yeah,
So, if you
Milwaukee's
guys know
small.
anybody over at Gaming Gym, they can get a couple tables open. Let's go.
I know they're working on it, and they have been very vigilant on it, so we'll definitely keep an eye out. I get pinged on all the posts, so as soon as I know, you'll know. Um, what else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, there will be a GLC interview that I'm gonna release. We're gonna have an interview channel we'll start. So aside from our podcast and every Friday content, we'll have some interviews, sometimes on the spot, sometimes with people who've won tournaments. We didn't get a chance to get a hold of Luke before this episode, so hopefully we'll have an interview with him, even if it's not now, maybe the next time we see him, which could be Milwaukee. And we can maybe even interview him as a back-to-back champion. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? So other than that, guys, this is Gold Dang Bros here signing off. Stay lucky.